So I think that humans inherently like to tell stories. I say this because we have cave drawings, we've told folk tales. In more modern years, we've started to take literature and adapt it into things for the big screen. In the last decade, in the last century or so, even we have taken strides to specifically improve the way that we tell stories, whether it's camera work or acting techniques. Just look at 2008's Iron Man or Incredible Hulk and compare it to 2018's Marvel Infinity War. Same studio, very similar writers, some of the same actors. We replaced Ed Norton with Mark Ruffalo, but the basis is the same. We tell these grandiose stories, and we consider them experiences. However, there is one medium of storytelling that I think goes incredibly underlooked that has made a lot of strides in the last 30 years. And it kind of puts what the Russo brothers and J.K. Rowling do to shame. And so today I would like to convince you, my audience, that video games are actually a better storytelling medium than both books and movies. And so in statistics I found, according to Forbes, James Cameron's Avatar, considered the highest grossing movie of all time, took in an income of $263 million its opening week. It's a lot. Like I said, highest grossing movie of all time. But then you look at a video game that came out around the same time, around the same year, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, it's grossed a total of $550 million alone. Similarly, the following years, Toy Story 3 came out. I'm sure we all love Toy Story. That movie grossed a total of $163 million in the box office its opening week, as opposed to Call of Duty Black Ops the same year, grossing in $650 million. And so, why is this happening? I'm sure most of us watch movies, but not all of us play video games. How come these video games that I think today are so considered more of a niche market are taking in more income and more revenue from what seems to be less people? Well, and especially when you consider that movies have been around since the end of the 19th century, since the 1870s, 1890s, moving pictures have just evolved and gotten better. We've gone from Steamboat Willie to, again, Indiana Jones and Infinity War. Well, according to Tobias Batten, he is an app and game developer. In the interview with Forbes that had the statistics I listed, he analyzes it like this. Because of the fact that movies aren't interactive, they can't compete in the same league. He believes that that user interaction, the fact that the players have that choice to be a part of the story and to influence the story with their own actions, is what draws people in, and is what forms a psychological connection that is stronger between video games and a person as opposed to a person and a movie. In his own words, he considers movies and books to just be a sit and watch experience, not interactive. Another notable person who weighed in on this issue, or weighed on this topic in an interview with The Telegraph, was Lucy Preble, a playwright. Even she had to admit that video games are more akin to writing, as opposed to movies and books just being, a sit and watch experience. With video games, it allows you to be creative. It allows you to shape the world and shape the story in a way that is unique to you. And that is something that, while movies and books have tried to do, they've built these universes, they've built these, grandiose experiences to take you in and encapsulate you for a set amount of time. I don't think you really feel as immersed in them, whereas video games have managed to strive in the last 30 years to kind of make you feel a part of that world when you're playing. You look at the kind of the scale that video games have come. What's widely considered to be the very first video game is Pong. The 2 bars moving around hitting the 1 pixel of a ball. That's considered the very first video game. In 10 years, we have what's considered to be the very first video game with a story according to the Guinness Book of World Records, which was Donkey Kong. It's considered to have a main story because it is an Italian plumber trying to save a princess from an ape. In 10 years, it took from 1971 to 1982 to get from hitting a ball back and forward to an 8-bit game about jumping over barrels that's considered to have a story. If you look at the last 30 years, though, we've come from Donkey Kong to open world games like out this year, such as God of War, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Fallout 76, and most notoriously, in my opinion, Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm sure at some point in the last week or so, you guys have heard about that game for whatever reason. And the reason why that is is because it's amazing how far they've come. You know, you see the 10 years difference between, you know, Incredible Hulk and Infinity War. Yeah, it's impressive. You know, CGI's gotten better, directing's gotten better, writing's gotten better, but the formula remains the same. And formula has been the same for as long as we can remember. You know, James Bond in the 50s and 60s follows the same formula that, you know, the Hulk went through in 2008. As opposed to video games, you've come from Donkey Kong to, you know, exploring the Wild West in your own adventure. And so, what I'm trying to get to is the fact that in the last 30 years, video games have made an incredible amount of strides that kind of overshadows everything that film and books have been able to do in the last, whether it's the thousands of years books have been around, the formula hasn't changed. In the last 150 years that movies have been around, the formula's kind of formed into what it is. Video games are still changing. You know, we're going into virtual reality. If there's an analogy I can use to kind of compare where I think video games are headed, it'd be the story from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. Video games in our world are as close as we're getting to a virtual vacation. We crave experiences that are unique to our own, and that's how we share stories. And that gets back to my conclusion, which is my main point, is I believe video games are a more impressive and a more effective form of storytelling because the heart of storytelling is to share an experience, to share specifically your unique experience. And that's something that movies and books don't really allow for. You watch movies and you read books to give something that is already done. It's a finished product, and it's something that you get to watch and unfold, and that's your experience, as opposed to something like Red Dead Redemption has 60 hours of pure story that you're able to play through, you're able to shape, you're able to form your own experience and share the way you want to. Not the way that the developer intended, or the way that the author wanted you to make, or the way that the director wanted you to see. That experience is yours. And so I hope that you guys agree with me, that video games allow you to create your own experiences and share your own stories. I hope that you guys actually give it a try. Thank you.
All right, Bella, some comments? Oh, she left. Okay, well, fair enough.
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, wow, that was a really great speech. You stayed, pretty much all the way straight through on your outline, how you wanted to break it down. In the beginning, your hook was hooked me. That's for sure. I was totally into it the whole time. 100% of my attention was towards what you were saying, and I love the way you explained how movies, they stuck to kind of the same script, bad guy, good guy, whatever it may be, and then you have where you bring in, video games, and then all of a sudden you have like open world and all these different games that allow you to make the choices instead of just, sitting and watching a movie. And then I was kind of confused at first when you said sit and watch when you referred it to the books, and then I thought about it, I was like, okay, yeah, because you read it and then you just watch what's going on. You do feel, the only thing I was like kind of like iffy about is because when you do read a book, it's like you do feel as if you are in the story, like you're really into it. So I mean, it is kind of like the same for video games sometimes, but I mean, definitely how you broke it down was a great speech overall.
All right. I like your experience at the beginning of storytelling and the idea that there's a human need for that. I think there's a little bit of kind of suspense as you're building up to your topic reveal. When you get there, I think that's fine. You've got an interesting perspective on what you're talking about. I'm not sure that the media are competitive in nature. I think that they satisfy different needs, and I think maybe it might have been a more appropriate thing for you to do to use that comparison to lead us to the conclusion that you're talking about, that video games have provide us with a different kind of experience that is one that's necessary and has some value to it, as opposed to simply making a comparison between video games and previous media and then arguing that the video game is superior in some way, shape, or form. I think that that's probably less effective as a strategy than the other would be. I do like the notion that the whole discussion of it being interactive is important, and how the people who are participants shape the story. Although you need to, frankly, you have to explain that to me a little bit more, since I'm not a video gamer. I mean, I know that you make choices in the game, but you just said there's 60 hours of what you're doing. I'm going, well, I know the story's going to end if you get killed, I assume, and you start over again, or that there are other paths. I'm having trouble visualizing some of the things that you're talking about and seeing it the same way that I see other kinds of stories. To me, it's like any game is interactive in that way. Whether you're playing hide and seek or tag or Monopoly or whatever it is, you're creating the story as you go along. There's something that's going on there, but I don't see that as being the same kind of experience. I think it is a different experience. What I think you need to do is you need to tell us why it's a valuable experience. What do we get from that as a participant, as somebody who becomes a creator in the process? I like that too, that because you make those choices. So what are some of the stories that you can tell from that? Because I'm thinking, if you were going to try to relate the story that you're talking about or that you experienced in the video game to anybody else, it wouldn't be meaningful to us. It's only meaningful to that particular person. And when you say it's a shared story, it's only a shared story if we're playing against you. Otherwise it feels like it's something different. And that's why I think that you've made an odd choice in making those comparisons. I like a lot of what you've got in the presentation. I just think that's a kind of a key flaw there. The presentation itself, though, I think you're very solid. You don't have any problems talking to us. You look at us directly. You're very confident when you're speaking. You know what it is you want to say, and I think everybody here will give you plenty of credibility for the way you are expressing those ideas. All right, thank you.